We're not supposed to try to be Gedolim. We're supposed to try to be better than we were yesterday. We're supposed to try to maximize our potential. Having said that, I love Gedolim biographies. I read all of them. And Silver said, look, you're never going to be Rav Schachter. But that's okay. You could be you could be something else. It's not always the best learner or the fullest guy that you want to push into chinuch. And truth is, you don't want to push anybody anywhere. This is the kind of thing that you'd come home every day and you would be happy with how you spent your day. It has nothing to do with denigrating balabatim. That would be absurd.
Shalom Aleichem, and welcome to Shtark Tank. Shtark Tank is a podcast about the challenges and opportunities of being a Ben Torah in the workforce. This is a very, very special episode. It is our 100th episode, and to celebrate this special occasion with us, it's a great honor and privilege to be joined by Rav Aryeh Lebowitz. So Rav Aryeh, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. What an honor to be here for the 100th episode. I've enjoyed many of them.
Thank you. And we even got a few shout outs and different shiur. So maybe just by way of background to set up this conversation, we're mainly going to be doing a Q&A. Listeners on our Shtark Tank WhatsApp group sent in some wonderful questions, which we'll get to. But maybe just to frame the conversation, a bit of personal background about yourself and your career deliberations. Were you always planning on being a rabbi? Did you ever consider becoming a Ben Torah in the workforce? And maybe after that, we'll go into the listener questions.
Yeah, I mean, as a child, I was assuming that I was going to become a lawyer when I grew up. I don't know why, but that just always appealed to me. And to the extent that even I applied to law school and I got into law school and deferred the acceptance of 1 year, then another year. And then ultimately I decided that chinuch was the right path and Rabbanim, and haven't really regretted the decision at all.
Amazing. Okay, so let's get into it. Maybe as an opening question, let's just review some of the basic halachos of Talmud Torah for a balabas, a Ben Torah, who's busy with their job and their family, and they also, obviously, it's important to them to learn Torah. So what are some of the basic halachos that we should be remembering and making sure that we're makpid on before we get into the more advanced questions?
Sure. I'm reminded of a story of a friend of mine, Rabbi Yechiel Weberman. The first time he finished Shas, he made a siyum Shas in Yeshiva Shar Yashav. His Rebbe, Rosh Shiva, Rav Naftali Yeager, came over to him after the siyum, and he said to him, Mazel tov, it's great. Just remember, it doesn't say anywhere in Shulchan Aruch that you have to finish Shas, but it does say in Shulchan Aruch you need to do Shnai Mikra Vecha Targum. So make sure that you're doing that. So the most fundamental, I would say, there are three things that I'm aware of that are actual beferish halachos in Shulchan Aruch about the minimum of what a person is supposed to learn. Number one, the Shnai Mikra Vecha Targum. A person is supposed to be tzibur every single week. Number two, what the Gemara in Kedushin says, shlish b'mikra, shlish b'mishnah, shlish b'talmud. A person is supposed to split each learning day into parts of Mikra, Mishnah, and Talmud. So either learn a little Talmud Bavli, relying on the Balei Tosfos, or what the Gaonim already suggested, what we do in the morning, to not skip the parts of davening in between Birchas HaShachar and Psukei Zimra, so that we can fulfill all three parts right there. And the third thing is that the Shulchan Aruch writes in Yoreh De'ah and Hilchos Talmud Torah in Reish Mem Vav that a person is supposed to be kaveh itim l'Torah both during the day and during the night, a little bit during the day and during the night. And the Ramah writes what it says in the Gemara, that b'shas hadchak, you can be yossi the kriyash meshul shachris v'arvis, but obviously that's only b'shas hadchak. L'chadchila, person should make sure to learn a bit, during the day and during the night. And then there's just the general obligation that when you have free time and you have the wherewithal and you have the ability, you should always be striving to learn more.
On that last point, I've always really struggled with that. The few minutes here, few minutes there, when you're not really focused enough to learn something substantial. And even the small ludim, I've personally tried and had a very hard time with that. So it's interesting how you did qualify that. Like, people are not always in the headspace to be utilizing every spare minute. So on that point, or broadly in Talmud Torah, what are some of the best eitzos and things that you've seen people do that really help them grow in their learning long term, even though they're also developing professionally?
So first of all, I think it's a good idea to pick up new things, svarim that you hadn't learned before, and that may excite you, it may broaden your horizons a little bit. As far as just like those 2-minute intervals here and there, Rav Schachter always recommends that balabatim have a kitzur shulchan aruch with them, and to just go, because it's something you can really do in just 2 minutes here, 2 minutes there. And he always suggests that when you go through the kitzur shulchan aruch, you should make a check next to any halacha that is not familiar to you. And then the next time through, you should only learn the paragraphs that have a check next to them. And again, put a check next to anything that you do not remember. And then next time through, learn through the double check ones. That's the system that he recommends. I think a major part of growth in learning, though, and continuing to strive in learning, is to somehow train yourself to think in learning. Meaning, try to start your day with, or your week, for that matter, with some piece of Torah that you can keep in mind, in your downtime. You're going to sleep at night, and and it takes a few minutes. So let Torah thoughts, run through your head as you're falling asleep. You have to be conscious about it, because you have to consciously choose a piece of Torah that you want to keep in your head. But I find it's a very meaningful thing to do, and it's a surefire cure for insomnia. Because if a person has trouble sleeping, either the Yetzer Hara is going to say, I don't like this, that he's learning so much, so it'll put you to sleep right away. Or you won't fall asleep right away, and you'll chazer over that piece of learning 100 times, and it'll be great. So either way, you win. One of my Talmidim actually asked Rabbi Yisrael Reisman once, when we went there in the summer, we go visit Rabbi Reisman's Yeshiva in Yeshiva Torah V'das, and a Rav in Brooklyn, big person. So one of my Talmidim asked him if he has any eitzes of how to train yourself to think in learning. And his response, before he actually gave an answer, his response was, I want you to remember that there was a time in your life that you asked that question. Because so often we get so busy and we have so many other responsibilities, and it's the furthest thing from our mind to aspire to, even to think and learning. So remember that there was a time when you were a young man that thinking and learning was an aspiration. But it is something that doesn't have to stop being an aspiration. If a person learns every day, why not have that thought, instead of thinking about the millions of other things that are not productive and are not a mitzvah and that will not solve anything? Let's think of learning. It's also a good idea to talk and learn. Whatever that thought is, share it. So many times we're in small talk situations. You're at a l'chaim, you're at a sheva brachos, you're at a simcha, you're somewhere, and some social event, and they're just, so what are you going to talk about? You're just going to pretend that you have something to talk about. You make up conversation about something that doesn't interest you, and might as well, you don't have to talk about the weather every time. So share a kasha and learning, talk and learning. I think that's it generates a certain certain perception of you that will encourage others to share Torah with you as well, and it will force you to always have something to say.
And if we take a step back and look at long-term goals and aspirations in our learning, which you alluded to before, what are your thoughts about developing a healthy sense of that? And maybe within that, some people grow up on the genre of Gedolim biographies and maybe being told that they should consider themselves as a future Gadol and an aspiring Gadol. And that is, on the one hand, sometimes motivational, but it sometimes can cause a lot of stress. And that's maybe another part of this conversation about when a person feels negative emotions, stress, because they're not learning enough. So how do we sort of live with all these things together?
I'm reminded, Rav Aryeh Lebowitz told me once that he was attending, I think, his grandson's, maybe it was like an 8th grade graduation in Haredi school in Eretz Yisrael. There were like 300 boys there. And they said, we now ask all the boys to stand up. And all the boys stood up, and the Menahel said, in this group is the next Gadol Hadar, is in this group. And Rav Lebowitz said, he thought to himself, wow, you just acknowledged that you have failed in your mission with 299 out of the 300 boys, and that you're only successful with one of them, meaning that's the aspiration, that you're going to produce a Gadol Hadar. What about everybody else? There aren't so many Gadol Hadar. There aren't so many people of that madrega. I think it's unreasonable for a person to assume that they're going to be, one of the more powerful things I heard when I was in yeshiva, when I was in Keren B'Yavneh, I wasn't sure what career to choose and what my path would be. Probably the person that was most instrumental in terms of encouraging me personally to go into chinuch and Rabbanim and to stay in the world of, in the Torah world was my Rabbi Rav Silver Shlita. And Silver said, look, you're never going to be Rav Schachter. But that's okay. You could be something else. You're not gonna. And it sounds crazy, but at the time I was thinking, what? I'm not going to be Rav Schachter. I thought you're supposed to strive for godless. I thought everybody is supposed to assume that they're going to be a gadol. Rav Lopiansky told me something similar also once. He said that a bacher came to him and he was very distraught. The bacher was like 17, 18 years old, and he said, "What are you so upset about?" He said, "I realized when the Chavetz Chaim was my age, he already was, far advanced from where I am now." So the Chavetz Chaim, once in a century, you get a Chavetz Chaim in the world. Do you think you're going to be the Chavetz Chaim? Are you crazy? He thought that the gaiva in such a statement is just.
Around 24 hours after recording this episode, Rav Lebowitz sent me the following voice note.
I think I got that wrong. It wasn't Rav Lapiansky. I heard this from Rabbi Reisman. It's a little more powerful. Rabbi Reisman said that Rav Pam never got angry. He was a very calm, even-keeled person. But when a 16-year-old boy said to him that he's so upset because he realized that the Chavetz Chaim was at a higher level at his age than he is, Rav Pam got really angry. Who does this boy think he is? A once in a century kind of tzaddik like the Chavetz Chaim, and he thinks he's supposed to be the Chavetz Chaim. We're not supposed to try to be gedolim. We're supposed to try to be better than we were yesterday. We're supposed to try to maximize our potential. Having said that, I love Gedolim biographies. I read all of them. I have pages folded in with great Gedolim stories. I love to not only read about the things that you can aspire to emulate, like the Midos and the Chesed and things like that, but even the stories of the greatness in learning, which I know that I can never have. I still find it inspiring that Hashem gifted this world with people that were able to accomplish so much. On some level, you can use as motivation and inspiration in terms of how they thought about things and how they accomplished so much, what their systems were in accomplishing so much. I think that the Dolan biographies, meaning I don't think is this a problem in any other field where people read about like biography of a president? And they say, "Oh, if I'm never president, then I'm a failure." Just because you're reading a biography, a presidential biography, doesn't mean that you have to be the president of the United States. Just because you're reading a biography of Albert Einstein doesn't mean you have to be Albert Einstein. So I think over here also, we should read the biographies. They're good, they're inspiring, they're wonderful. But it's unreasonable for a person to assume that the rank and file is all going to become the Gadol Adar.
And the last point which I mentioned, I'm going to ask you to address it because it's something that I personally struggle with quite often. Someone who feels stressed that they're not learning enough, they're not accomplishing enough in their learning.
So what's the question exactly? If someone feels stressed, then what?
Then is that something that they should try to, is that coming from a bad place? Is it coming from a good place because they should be doing more, or it's an unhealthy view of things that's leading to that?
Right. So there's a very, very simple test to see if it's healthy or not. If it motivates you to learn more and be more productive, then it's healthy. If it motivates you to feel like a piece of garbage and that you can never accomplish anything and therefore throw in the towel and do less, then it's very unhealthy. So that it's a very simple test. Sometimes we need that motivation to realize that we're not fulfilling our potential. And other times, if we just like, oh, when am I ever going to be a Talmud Chacham? I'm already this old and I'm not a Talmud Chacham yet. And therefore I might as well give up. So that would be a terrible thing.
Okay, great. Dove from the UK sent in a very interesting question. He said that he really enjoys a lot of the learning program that we are zocha to now, whether it's Michas Chaver, Kinyan Masechta, others. He said, I learn these programs, I love them and enjoy them and grow from them, but he finds the marketing around them a little bit off. You talk about revolutionizing your learning, like Mehecha Tesi, that our learning needs a revolution. So is there something to that, I guess, critique, quote unquote, that maybe the marketing around learning should be treated in a way that maybe a little more toned down and a little more, respectful of what was done until now?
Yeah, I think the way to look at it is not that learning needs revolutionizing, but you need revolutionizing, meaning it's not the chafta, it's the gavra that needs to be revolutionized a little bit. Meaning, it takes Minchas Chaver. I teach Minchas Chaver now for 7 years. I'm on my second cycle. We're doing Basa B'Chalad for the second time. It's amazing. It's fantastic. What is it? It's a peek at the Psukim, the Gemaras, the Rishonim, and the basic halacha, and until modern day poskim. which is, growing up, that's what we called learning, but it's done so nicely, and it's put together so well. And, with questions and answers, it's set up so nicely. It's not really, learning is not being revolutionized. What we're figuring out, or what some of these successful programs are figuring out, is how to make it appealing to the people, how to make it appealing to the Jewish people who want to grow in their learning. So is it undignified for Torah to be described in terms that you would describe a new car or something like that? Yeah, I think it is undignified. But if it works, it's probably worth it anyway. I remember when Rabbi Penner took over as the Dean of REITs, Rav Schachter commented to me, because of Rabbi Penner's NCSY background, that he has so many shticks. There's so much shtick. So I said, oh, and that's not good. He goes, no, it's great. He gets all these guys to finish Masechtas because there's a big siyum and there's a this and that. It's like all of it's good. He's getting so many people to learn. In the end of the day, it's if that's what the generation needs to draw us in and to get us excited about it, it's worth it.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit about going into chinuch. It's something that especially the younger listeners of this podcast are very much still thinking about. Also, older listeners are always considering different options of being marbitz Torah and career paths, et cetera, et cetera. And it's something that you are dealing with on a day-to-day basis, training the next generation of leaders and Rabbanim and Mechanchim in Klal Yisrael. So can you talk about that whole discourse around that sugya in a way where we try to get the right talent to the right places, where we try to encourage the people who are fit to go to chinuch without denigrating balabatim? Oh, he's just a balabas. What's going to become for you if you go into business? So what's your take on that whole approach?
Okay, and that's pretty much my job. What you just described is to be able to identify who should be and who shouldn't be going into Klei Kodesh, chinuch, or Rabbanos, or kiruv, and it has nothing to do. It has very little to do with excellence in learning or with even dedication or frumkeit. It really has to do with a person's kochos and nefesh, and a person's desire to want to be doing this for their whole lives, a person's willingness to be moser nefesh, a willingness to move to smaller communities sometimes, a wife who is willing to be moser nefesh. So it's not always the best learner or the frumest guy that you want to push into chinuch. And truth is, you don't want to push anybody anywhere. You want to make sure that they're thinking about they're thinking about it honestly. A lot of people don't go into chinuch because they were raised to be, to believe that it's impossible. It's impossible to go into chinuch and to live a normal life or to feed your family. So a lot of times it's just a matter of taking them out of that mindset and saying, let's think about this rationally, and let's think about it in an unbiased way. Is this what excites you? Is this what you can see yourself doing for the rest of your life? Is this the kind of thing that you'd come home every day and you would be happy with how you spent your day? It has nothing to do with denigrating balabatim. That would be absurd. I had someone come to my house, my sukkah actually, a couple of years ago, who grew up in not with the same rebbeim that I was privileged to have. He's been very taken by my rebbeim, and he wanted to started listening to shiurim of Rav Schachter and your uncle Rabbi Rosner and people like that. And one of the things that drew him to this Torah was exactly that point, that there's no denigration of people who earn an honest living, who work hard. And he said that he ran into one of his high school rebbeim, and the Rebbe said, "What are you up to?" And what are you up to in life? And he said, "Well, he was married and a couple of children, and I'm working at such and such a place." And the Rebbe said, "No, not everybody can make it." And he said, that was so hurtful, and it doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help anybody to think that way, and it's also not true. I look around my shul sometimes. I'm very privileged to be the rabbi of a shul where many of the members of the shul are tremendous Bnei Torah, and I often wonder, looking around at some of the balabatim in the shul who are very successful at balancing Talmud Torah with their professional lives. I think I don't think I would be able to do it. I don't think I would be able to be as serious as they are. I don't think I would be able to be as motivated as they are, considering how hard they have to work throughout the rest of the day. So adarabba, I would put those people up on the pedestal, not to ever denigrate.
Have you ever had a situation, or how often would it happen, where you see someone who wants to go into chinuch, wants to go into Kodesh, and you actually encourage them that maybe their best place for Klal Yisrael would be as a Ben Torah in the workforce? Does that happen?
Yeah, all the time, all the time. Meaning, a lot of times you just see that the only reason the person wants to go into chinuch because he thinks that if you're a serious guy, that's what you're supposed to do, and he's a serious person, and he's very frum, but it's not really what he wants to do. He doesn't like kids. So what's he going to do in the classroom if he doesn't like it, or he just doesn't want to deal with discipline issues and and programming and things that rabbis have to do all the time? Meaning, going into chinuch is not sitting in kollel for the rest of your life, and it's a different skill set. So yeah, it happens all the time, and you can really guide people to stay involved in the klal. Not just stay involved in yourself, stay involved in the klal. You should have a stake in something. Have a stake in your yeshiva, in your shul. Be someone who's a doer in the community, because if it makes a world of difference if the board members of a shul or a school or an organization are true Bnei Torah who actually know what the inside of a Gemara looks like. Who've seen a Ketzos every now and then, versus people who just don't get it. They just never had that experience with Torah.
And when we take this whole conversation and we throw the question of Aliyah into the mix, we had a very important episode with Rabbi Ru Berman, who started out in YU in the Kol Elyon and as a machanech, made Aliyah, and then realized it wasn't working. And that stirred a lot of conversation and debate around this topic. So how do you counsel guys to think about that factor as far as their career and their life plans?
Yeah, I heard that episode. Rabbi Berman's fantastic. He's a great example of Ben Torah, Talmud Chacham. Okay, the chinuch in Eretz Yisrael wasn't happening for him. So he still gives Torah, he still shares Torah, and he had to, professionally, he pivoted to something else. I don't really have a good grasp of the landscape of chinuch in Eretz Yisrael. I do tell Talmidim, be very careful, because based on what I do know, in terms of salary levels, I can't imagine how it's just hard for me to imagine how people survive now on the salary levels of mechanchim in Israel. Not that a person has to make a choice. Either I go into chinuch or I make aliyah. I don't think that has to be a binary choice. But you have to be a little more open if you're going to make aliyah to other opportunities. If they come up, you have to be more open to spreading yourself a little thinner and teaching in a lot of different places. You're doing a lot of different things. And I would say you're best off either if you've already established yourself here and therefore you're wanted in Israel, like your uncle, let's say. As soon as word got out that Rav Aryeh was going to make aliyah, so every yeshiva wanted him. So that okay, not all of Rabbanim, but the idea of being an established person here helps. Or on the opposite end, just make aliyah early, very early, and you'll see where life takes you. Because if there's Baruch Hu will take care of you when the right opportunities will come up. But if you get too entrenched in the American system, then you have an expectation that first year Rebbe here makes X amount of dollars teaching at North Shore or SAR or whatever, or Frisch. And then you expect that same thing to happen when you go and you teach in, Torah Shrago or Nativ or whatever. It's just not. It's not going to be there for you. It's not going to be the same.
Right. I mean, the word got out of Rav Aryeh 18 years ago this week, and if people are curious why I remember that, is because he came from my bar mitzvah, and it was also his pilot trip, and he did interviews that week. Great times, and obviously it's special that we have him here in Eretz Yisrael. But I guess one other question on this topic.
It's funny that you think of it that way. I think of it as the day he left was getting Daf Lamed Beis, because that's when I took over the Daf Yomi.
Right. Your Chavrusa's Shafta had to unfortunately come to an end back in the day. But I did want to ask you one more question on this topic, which is one of the suggestions that came out of that conversation and that episode was, would it make sense to not be so binary in our thinking, meaning someone try to be involved a little bit of both as they transition out of yeshiva, and therefore they can sort of see where life takes them, but getting their feet wet in the world of chinuch, but also leaving a business door open. With Haru is a little bit different, but is that something you would counsel people to try to do to allow these doors to stay open for a little bit longer?
I happen to be a big fan of leaving doors open in general, not only for people making Aliyah. I have Talmidim that are, question whether they should pursue a degree in social work while they're also going into chinuch. I think that they can go hand in hand. Now, I want to be clear. When I was younger, we were always told, if you're going into chinuch, you need a backup plan. You need a backup plan. I don't believe in a backup plan. You have to have, you have to have some belief, some trust in yourself, let alone be talking about Kodesh Baruch Hu, but some trust in yourself that you'll succeed. But what often is helpful is something to supplement, something else to do also. I was just talking to a Talmud yesterday who has a mental health degree. I don't know if it's social work or mental health counseling, whatever it is. And he was asking me, what do I do about the fact that all the parents from the school that I teach in want me to see their children? I don't think it's appropriate. I think it's like conflict of interest. He's a Rebbe in a school in New Jersey. I told him, well, there's a Rebbe in a school here in Woodmere that's got the same problem. You should refer clients to each other, and that way you'll be zen. But those are the kinds of things you can do even as you're in chinuch.
Okay, great. We have a couple of questions that were submitted about balancing our Torah and Yiddishkeit obligations along with family. So the first question is like this. If my wife is tired after a long night with the baby and wants to rest, does that justify skipping Minyan and davening b'yechidus?
Probably not every day, but, I remember there was a panel with Rav and Rebbitzin Lichtenstein. Lichtenstein's Dr. Tova Lichtenstein, and they were on a panel, and the person asked this kind of question, and Dr. Tova Lichtenstein, said, there were times where Aaron was late to Shachris because he was taking care of the children. And Rav Lichtenstein interrupted her and said, I missed Shachris entirely. And it was clear what had happened. She started her sentence. She didn't want to say it. So she laid to Shachris. And he said, no, let's be honest. There were times that I missed Shachris entirely to take care of the children. So that was like, it's jarring to hear. Rosh Yeshiva of that caliber, a person of that caliber, tzaddik of that caliber. But if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense that would be the right thing to do in certain circumstances. The wife shouldn't become a shmata where she can't, where in very, very high stress times. If it's happening every day, then, you have a problem. And you need to figure out some other solution.
Okay, next question about family. If the best possible time for a kfiyas for me is after Shachris from 7 to 8 a.m., it's also the only time I get to see my kids because I get home from my consulting job very late at night after they're asleep. What should I do? My wife is supportive, but I'm very much conflicted and sad about the possibility of not seeing my kids on a regular basis.
I think it is important that you see your kids on a regular basis. Great benefits of going into chinuch, as opposed to my other option was law. As when I was younger, when my kids were younger, I saw all my chaverim that were trying to climb the corporate law firm ladder. If they saw their kids during the week, the kids said, wait, it's Shabbos? They couldn't believe it. And whereas I was always home for dinner. I went out again later, but I was always home for dinner and homework and things like that. It is important. A lot of this depends on the type of community you live in, the type of expectations. I just mentioned Rav Aryeh Lebowitz. Last year, Rabbi Ephraim Goldberg brought a group of balabatim from Boca Raton to different Rabbanim in New York. He does it every year. And they went to Rav Yitzchak Lebowitz in Shtark Tank, Rav Aryeh's son. And they asked him about balancing Talmud Torah, but your kids' Little League games and things like that. And he said, "Where does it say in Shulchan Aruch you need to go to a Little League game? You got to learn. Forget about the Little League game." So he's coming from a certain perspective. That wouldn't sell so well in many communities. That forget about the kid; he'll figure it out later. I would suggest the best time to learn is 5 to 6, not 7 to 8. If you're davening from 6 to 7, learn from 5 to 6.
Okay, it's certainly a lofty aspiration. I've tried that a couple times and still nowhere close to be succeeding, but it would certainly be nice if I'll be able to do that. A few questions that were sent in about technology. What about attention spans? Has Rebbe noticed a drop in attention spans, and how have you dealt with it? I teach bar mitzvah boys, and I've noticed this to be drastic.
Yeah, I mean, no one has an attention span anymore. Everything is, I could see based on which shiurim are popular. When Why You Torah started, no one understood why anyone would post anything less than an hour long. It's not a shiur if it's not an hour. That's what the definition of a shiur is. And then like the 10-minute halacha became like something that, and now it's like I do this this weekly Q&A thing for Rabbi Jonathan Cohn, Sheva for Shlema, and it's just like rapid fire, one question after, and now like by far it's the most popular thing I do. Most popular share I give because you don't have to pay attention for. So to a certain extent, it's sad, but we also have to adapt. I will say the good news is that I think the data and the research reveals that it is a reversible condition. And that when you put away your phone for hours at a time, your brain will pick up the ability to focus for longer periods of time. In yeshiva, Rav Rosenzweig still says shir for 2 hours, straight. There are no jokes and no stories. The Talmidim are, for the most part, obviously every shir has Talmidim that are stronger and weaker, but the Talmidim for the most part are in it and they're focused and they're working on it. They're working very hard. It can be done, but a person has to have a lot of discipline. A 13-year-old is not going to have the discipline.
And someone who wants to be on social media, but he wants to do it in order to spread Torah, is that justified, or is this a dangerous place that person should be avoiding at all costs?
Just did a whole podcast about it. This is my third podcast today. I just did for Reach Rabbinic Alumni. We just interviewed someone from the Sim School of Business. I was the host of that one. Interviewing someone from the Sim School of Business who does marketing and talking about rabbis marketing their Torah, their programs. And I get it. I get that part of Parnassah Torah is, meeting people where they are and getting it out there. And I get it. Personally, for me, I find it, I don't know. My attitude is always, I'm not, how should I say this? I feel that if a person is saying shir, you're teaching Torah, if it's good, people will want it and they'll find it. And they'll figure out how to get it out there. And if it's good enough, Rabbi Aryeh doesn't have to market his Torah. Others will do it for him. You will do it for him. Others will do it for him. Sometimes you have like people who will cold call every shul. Can I speak? Can I give a comment? And others, you go after them and you look for them. So I don't know. I get it. I get that there are different mahalchim and that is it's not worth going down that. Look, the way I said it, I gave a Musar Shmuz in Yeshiva last year, explaining how when I deleted my Twitter account, it freed up enough time in my day that I was able to start a Mission Brush here every night. Like Lachamei Esrim, Chris Baruch is going to say, for those 15 years you were on Twitter, how many times Mission Brewer would that have been? Like how many, and what I realized and what motivated me to delete the account was that these platforms have very sophisticated algorithms that are meant to draw you in. You are the product. They want your attention. Your eyeballs are what they're selling to their customers, who are the advertisers or whatever else. So you are the product, and they will do whatever it takes. And they'll have brilliant computer programmers figuring out how to get your eyeballs on their screens for longer. And aside from the dehumanizing element of it, I just realized I wasn't smart enough. I'm not smart enough to defeat the algorithm. So personally, for me, I just have a hard time with the social media.
Okay, so we're nearing the end. We just changed the clocks, and the days have got the shkia has gotten a lot earlier, and so we had a few questions about mincha during these times. So the first question is there a justification for missing mincha for work? To what and when do we assume that these are signs that maybe you're in the wrong field or not? How do we go about that dilemma if you're very, very busy and davening mincha becomes a very big challenge?
Yeah, I mean, it's in Shulchan Aruch, I think, that there is justification, but if it happens consistently, then you're probably in the wrong field. Meaning it shouldn't happen consistently. Mitzvah doesn't take that long. There's those who are missing minyan and missing tefillah entirely. Missing minyan is a question to machlokes haposkim whether minyan in general is a chiyuv or a Rav Schachter likes to refer to as the cherry on the top. And it's a beautiful hidur in the way that we do tefillah. But if it's a lot of these things, if they happen consistently, people sometimes ask me, "What's more important, learning or davening?" Because I can learn my seder or I can daven in the morning. If your schedule is such that you don't that you'll never daven shachris or the minyan, that's the wrong schedule. if your schedule is such that once in a while, there will be a conflict and you'll have to choose. Okay, so then in Echanami, learning may be more important. But one has to make sure that, in the halach of life, that mincha happens every day.
Can one daven a shorter mincha, heichal kedusha, and stuff like that to enable more work, more productivity? What are the halachas about that?
I think when Shulchan Aruch talks about mincha ktsara, you're talking about having a shorter mincha, davening a heichal kedusha.
Right, both.
So to speak up your davening a little bit, there's nothing so terrible about that. You try some people when they daven a little faster, it's easier to have kavana because it's less time to focus. Sometimes it can be more focused when we go. So if you're able to do that, to do Arecha Kedusha, Shulchan Aruch says when it's Shad D'chuka, I think is the lashon. So even though the lashon was borrowed, meaning in Beis Yosef where it's more elaborate, I think he says Shad D'chuka, it's going to be shkia. And that's why he's a Shulchan Aruch. I think he just says Shad D'chuka, that if you're really low on time, then you could do a Kedusha. But otherwise, if you're not really low on time, then you're supposed to do the full Father shots. I don't know where the minute came from that anytime you have a minyan at a wedding, that it also all of a sudden has to be a Kedusha. I don't know how it is in Israel. In America, we're at these weddings for like 5 hours. There's so much downtime. They can't spare the extra 2.5 minutes for a full Chazar shots. So it defies logic.
I don't think that's made in Eretz Yisrael, but I guess just another perk. What about the place that a person goes to daven mincha? Some office areas have a contemplation room. One of the questions was about a contemplation room that has basically de facto been taken over by Muslims for their prayers. It's basically a mosque. Or alternatively, if it's a multi-purpose prayer room for all faiths, ki basi kara tefillah yikara l'kol ha'amim. So what are the dinim about davening there?
Yeah. This is not a new question. Airports, hospitals, there are a lot of places that have rooms like this. I think what the Muslims say that is, as long as it's just a room to give you a quiet place to pray, even though it's used by others for their prayers, as long as there's no overt symbols of other religions, it just looks like a chapel type of room, but it's, no overt symbols of other religions. So I think it's perfectly fine to daven.
Okay, last question before we go to the rapid fire. You have listened to a number of these episodes. I assume it's because you care a lot about the world of Bnei Torah in the workforce. So what other sort of topics do you think would be important to address that you haven't seen addressed in our podcast or other areas so much? Areas or niches within the world of balabatim striving to integrate their careers and their Torah and their family and all these things that you think maybe people aren't paying enough attention to?
That's a very good question. Things that are underrated for balabatim. Maybe I don't know if you did one about the importance of having a rebbe even later in life. Yeshiva, everyone knows you have to have a rebbe, but it's really important to be. There are balabatim in my shul who there are many that will view me as the rebbe because I'm the shul rabbi. There's nothing wrong with that. Your shul rabbi being your rebbe, and there are others that they'll still that you just had a Moshe Targin on recently, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a guy in my shul when he has whatever issue he has, he calls him Moshe Targin, and he talks him through it, and you could tell that there's a more thoughtful decision making process because the person has a rabbi, they have someone to turn to. So maybe the importance of that.
And like on a communal level, like what does that look like? Is that fair to assume or to hope that people like Rabbi Targin and Rabbi Rosner should be able to have the time, make the time, especially on time-sensitive issues, or even not? Because I certainly hear why that is a tremendous idea, an important idea, but practically it can run into certain speed bumps. So what are your thoughts about that sort of scaling that idea on a broader level?
It's a problem that they're so overrun by people that want to look. They are very busy, but and it doesn't have to be your Rebbe from yeshiva, but aseh l'charav, it's an obligation. You should try your best to have someone. I think they said when Rav Schachter made Aliyah, he felt that he needed a Rebbe, so that's how he developed a relationship with Shlomo Zalman, because he felt that he was leaving his Rebbe and he needed a Rebbe wherever he was going. So I think it is. I think it is worth it, even though it may be difficult for some of the Rabbanim to figure out how to juggle it all and how to guide everybody that needs their guidance. I think it's one of my proudest things is that in my shul, most of the people in the shul don't call me rabbi; they call me Rebbe, and I'm not Hasidish, so it's not as in Hasidish Rebbe. because they view that as that's the relationship. And I think that's an important relationship.
Okay, beautiful. All right, Lebowitz, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule. We always wrap up with some rapid fire questions, 3 short questions, 3 hopefully short answers. We've changed the clocks. We have long Friday nights. What does Rabbi Lebowitz like to do at that time?
We have a chabura in the shul that starts on winter Friday night, so that's what I go to. And not that I give, I attend if I can. Although, to be honest, there's always things. There's always this tish, this shalom zacher, this that. There's always things that once the Friday nights get longer.
It's not a half hour.
Let me actually. I know it's supposed to be rapid fire. I would say the opposite. In the summertime, when you have those long Shabbos afternoons, Rabbi Reisman gives a great piece of mussar that I really took to heart. He says, during the winter, you wake up the same time Shabbos morning. Shachar starts the same time, mussar ends the same time. Your meal starts the same time, it ends the same time. Somehow you make it back to shul by 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Shabbos afternoon during the winter. What's to stop you from making it back to shul by 4 o'clock during the summer? You go sit and learn. Nothing else is going on. You have the same exact schedule. So I really took that to heart. I try to make it my business every Shabbos in the summer to be back in shul by 4 o'clock.
Okay, we have to bookmark that one and repost it when the summer comes around. We're going into hibernation now, but it'll come. And I think it's a great piece of advice. When you're preparing a drasha, parshas shavua, week after week, and you need some inspiration, you need some ideas, and it could be this changes from year to year, month to month. But what's one of your go-to svarim to look for inspiration ideas on the parsha?
Lately, Rav Truk has been very helpful because it's short ideas and you can really develop it into something. So I find that very helpful. That was lately, but every year it's a different sefer that I use as a go-to until I use it up.
Okay, great. And final question: if you were forced to leave the world of Rabbanos, which you love so much and care for so much, but if you were forced in some alternate reality to choose a new job in a new industry, something that you maybe dreamed about or have an itch to do in some way, shape, or form, what would that be?
Don't know. Writing svarim doesn't count, right? It's not. Yeah. I'd have to do something else. I don't know. And it would probably still be in teaching. It would probably be teaching in, in a high school level or university level, history or something like that. I would start studying those, that kind of thing. Yeah, probably.
Okay, Rav Lebowitz, thank you so much for coming and celebrating this milestone with us together. And we look forward to continuing to learn from your wonderful shiurim, which we're constantly, I personally gain so much for. So thank you so much for everything that you've done for me and for the rest of our listeners and for all Klal Yisrael. And thank you for joining us.
Okay, milestone in the milestone. Ashrecha. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you. If you were listening closely to this week's episode, you noticed that this week was my birthday. If you want to get me a really amazing gift, all you have to do is make sure that you're subscribed and you've already left a 5-star review. If you've already done that, you can leave a comment telling me how much you enjoy this episode. All these things really help us grow the show and reach new listeners. Thank you so much to everyone who's been on this journey with me from episode 1 through today, episode 100 and onward. We'll see you next week.